Welcome back, boys and girls. But there were times that I didn't understand why people would use muzzle brake. And in fact, when I used to go to range and if I see somebody using a muzzle brake, even in their 223, I would actually avoid sitting next to that bench because it gets so loud sitting next to them. And it was kind of annoying. I thought people just did it because it looked really good, it looks bad. And I can understand why people use it on the bigger calibers and in the military wise, but I just didn't understand why for the hunters. And then even when I was shooting 308 or 358, I didn't feel the need of a muzzle brake. And when I bought my first 7 mag, they came with a muzzle brake from a Savage long range hunter and start hunting with it. And I see a lot of benefit in it. And I don't really see people talking about the benefit as a hunter using a muzzle brake. So today I want to talk about why they made the muzzle brake and why it helps the hunters and the pros and cons. First, let's talk about the difference between the flash hider and a muzzle brake. Now the difference is when the military invented flash hider, this was more for close combat. I don't want to say close combat, but let's say within 200 yards, because when you shoot a rifle, you see a flash of lightning and that gives away your location. So by putting the flash hider, this will hide the flashing. So the enemies can't really know where you are. But now with the muzzle brake, this is for 2 reasons. Number one is to reduce the recoil, and number two is to disperse the sound. So this is more for like if the sniper was shooting a rifle at let's say 500-600 yards, and if the sound is dispersed, it's really hard to tell where exact the location is, where the sound came from. So that was the 2 main reasons why they started with the muzzle brake. In the military, putting a muzzle brake on a 50 caliber rifle is must because it's going to reduce a lot of recoil, and from a distance, it's really hard to tell where that shot is coming from. Many competition shooter uses the muzzle brake because less recoil means you could get onto your next target that much faster. Now, many recreational shooters also use the muzzle brake because it's easier on their shoulder, and same thing with the hunters like me uses the muzzle brake because there's benefits. And there are those who like it because it looks bad. Honestly, I think it looks pretty good too. Just about 10 years ago, getting a muzzle brake on your rifle was very expensive. You had to go to a gunsmith and they had to thread your muzzle and put a muzzle brake on. It used to cost at least over $300. But nowadays, many rifle comes with installed muzzle brake, or they come with threaded barrel where you could just take the cap off and then buy aftermarket muzzle brake and just screw it on. This only cost me 17 bucks. First benefit is reduction of recoil. They said muzzle brake could reduce up to 50% of felt recoil. Now, I don't mind so much about felt recoil on my shoulder, but I do when it's touching my glasses. Now, I have 3 7 mag rifles, and this weatherby does not have a muzzle brake on. And when I'm shooting 168 grain out of this rifle, and I have my glasses on, and every time I pull the trigger, I have a tapping on my glasses, and that makes me jump. And I try to distance myself further, and I'm not getting the clear view out of my scope. So with this rifle, I don't shoot above 150 grain. And when you know that every time you pull the trigger, it's going to tap your glasses, it really makes me flinch when I'm pulling the trigger. Yeah, real soft shooting. In Virginia, when you have a hunter maybe 500 or 600 yards away from you, and if they're shooting a deer in your general direction, that sound comes to you with a full blast. It makes you jump into the brush. Second benefit is the disperse of the sound. Now, if you shoot a rifle without the muzzle brake, and if you shoot in one direction, maybe you might have a house, especially in Virginia, a house 700-800 yards away. They will have the full sound coming to them. So, they get a little scared. Now, with muzzle brake, the sound is dispersed from side to side, sometimes top and bottom. So the sound really decreases into one direction. And sometimes it's even hard to kind of tell where that sound came from. Now, if you shoot a gun with a muzzle brake, you're going to see right here. As soon as it goes off, there we go, right there. As it goes off, you're going to see a fire going in all different directions right there. So wherever the vent in the muzzle brake is pointing, you're going to see the fire going out that direction, which means same with the sound is going to go out to that direction. So you're going to have sound dispersed and not going in only one direction. But as you can see, even with 460 Smith & Wesson Magnum, it doesn't jump that high. So that recoil is really controlled. Heard Rachel shoot. I'm hoping it was Rachel. Now, benefit as hunter, I see many cases where deer hears a gunshot and they're confused where the noise came from. In fact, the one that Rachel shot, the deer after getting hit actually ran towards her because he was confused. You made a shot, she dropped on the spot?
No, she literally came running towards me actually. So it's sitting right there.
Oh, it's right there?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go and check it out. Okay, Rachel, go ahead and lead the way. Oh, wow, that's a perfect shot placement. Rachel shot the deer with this 338 Federal with a muzzle brake gun, and I took the same rifle out on a late season, into less early season, and I saw a bunch of deer coming right at me. In between, there was two big 8-point bucks. There were those and spikes, and the very front one, which was antlerless deer, about 60 yards, I pulled the trigger and it dropped really quick. But the rest of the deer just stood there not knowing where the sound came from, and they're trying to find where the shot came from. And they just hang around there for probably a good 15-20 minutes. And if I wanted to, I could have easily filled my daily tag, shoot another deer down. But then I only needed one more for my freezer, and that was the end of the season. So I was happy with it. Matt. Third benefit is that when you shoot a deer, you don't have to take your eye off the game. You can actually see how the deer reacts to the shot and which way it ran. Fourth benefit is follow-up shot. Especially with semi-automatic rifles, you don't have to take your eyes off the target and you could just pull the trigger if you need another shot. Fifth benefit is having a confidence in your long distance shooting. Now, when I'm shooting my 7 mag with a muzzle brake gun, I don't have any anticipation before I pull the trigger because it feels like shooting 243. So when I'm practicing out to 500 or even 600 yards, I really don't have any anticipation, and I pull my triggers and I see my targets getting hit, and I am confident when I'm pulling the trigger. Now, let's talk about the cons. Now, first is how loud it is. Now, as I've told you before, because the sound travels in all different directions, it's not so much for the shooter, but people next to you. They're gonna not only hear it a lot louder, but they could actually feel kind of impact coming toward them. But what was really funny was that when I was shooting that elk in Montana last year, I was the only one with a muzzle brake gun, and I was shooting my 7 mag. And after shooting the elk, I asked my buddies, was it too loud? And they were saying like, not really. They were so focused on the elk, just like myself. Nobody actually even noticed the sound of the muzzle brake. Secondly, it's gonna be heavier and it's gonna give you the extra length of your rifle barrel. Third, it could change the point of impact. So when you're shooting with it or without it, you have to resight in your rifle. Wow. Hardly no jump. Flat, just pulls back a little bit. But it did change the point of impact. That was without the muzzle brake. And this right here is with the muzzle brake. So as you can see, the point of impact has changed because it disturbed the dynamic of the barrel. And the groove did widen up a little bit. One thing I really like about this Savage muzzle brake is that you could actually turn on or off the muzzle brake by just twisting it. Now, I've tried shooting it with it on or off, and it does not change the point of impact. Whew, that's a bullseye. It didn't change any point of impact. 7mm Remington Magnum with muzzle brake on, and there's with muzzle brake off. Wow, this thing can really shoot. There you have it. These are my personal experience and my thoughts on muzzle brake. But I still have kind of hard time understanding why people would put a muzzle brake on a 223. Who knows, maybe someday I might put one and make another video why. Finally, next we're going to talk about hunting clothes and how to protect yourself from tick and Lyme disease. And lastly, like always, thank God for what you have, enjoy your life with what you got, but mostly remember, don't be too quick to judge. See you.